This is Alex Holcomb with Applied Information Sciences, and what I want to show is how you can issue a query to the search engine and display those search results in a grid view using Microsoft Office SharePoint Server 2007. So I have a web part here called GridView Search Results, and within that web part what I want to do is construct a query, issue that query to the search engine, retrieve the result set, and then bind that to a grid. In this case, the query that I'm going to execute is one that's going to return me all of the task items and all of the task lists that are assigned to the current user. And that's all task lists and all sites and all the site collections. In this first site collection, right, I've got a team site that has a task list. And within that task list, I've got 3 items, each of which are assigned to the current user, which in this case, it's me logged in as administrator. Okay. I've got a My Site set up. Now this is a separate site collection, and I've created a task list here. Within it, there are 2 items, and both of those are assigned to the administrator. So what I want to do is issue my query, have it return back all 5 of these items, and then display them in a grid view inside of my web part. So let me show you how I'm doing that within the code. So first, I'm using the Microsoft.Office.Server.Search.Query namespace, and that's going to provide me access to the Microsoft Office SharePoint Server search engine, and that's what's crawling and indexing all the content for all of my sites and all my site collections. Now all this is going to take place inside the render method of my web part. So the first thing we do is construct our query that we want to issue, and before we even do that, we want to get the name of the current user so we can use that inside of our query. So we do that, and then we start to construct our query, and in this case we're going to select the title, the path, and the priority. The scope is going to be everything. The content class, we're going to narrow down to the tasks list items, and we're going to narrow it even further so that the assigned to field is equal to the name of the current user. So once we construct our query, then we go ahead and create a new full text SQL query object. We set the relevant result type, or we set the result types to the relevant results, right? That's the result type that we want back. And then we set the query text to the search query that we just constructed. Right? So once we have that all set up, then we do an execute on that, and that's going to return from the search engine a result table collection. Now within that collection, the only table that we want is the relevant results, so we retrieve that out. And finally, we take that relevant result table and we bind that, or we load that into our own data table. And that's going to provide one way that we can bind this to the SPGridView in a few seconds. So now that we've got our results, we create a new SPGridView object. And this is SharePoint Grid, right? It's based on the .NET Grid view. One of the main differences is it doesn't auto-generate the columns for you. So we set that to false and we generate the columns ourselves. And in this case, we're just iterating through all the columns in our data table and adding those to our SPGridView. All right, so once we get all of our columns set up, then we go ahead and set our data table as a data source and bind it to the grid. And then finally, the last step is to render it. So we add our SPGridView to the controls collection, and then we do a grid.render control, and that's going to output the grid for us. Okay, so we take that, we build it, and I created that web part using the Visual Studio extensions for Windows SharePoint Services. You build that, it gets deployed, you add it to the page, and then when you look at it, it returns something like this, right? So this is the search result I got back from the search engine, and it's been formatted in this SPGridView, using the title and the path and the priority columns like we defined. So hopefully you've seen that it's relatively easy to take those search results from the search engine and bind them to a grid. In this case, we're using the SPGridView. You could certainly use something else. Also, hopefully you've seen how powerful that the search engine can be in certain cases. Right? It does all the security trimming for you. It's crawling and indexing all of the content, so it's relatively easy to construct a query to bring back whatever content you want, regardless of the site or site collection that content may be in, even if it spans the boundaries of those site collections. We used it here to pull back the information for all of the tasks assigned to the current user. Other scenarios where you could use it would be like when you want to query for all the sites or all the webs that the user has access to, right? If you wanted to just display that list of sites that the user has access to, that would be a very easy and efficient way to do that.